Mm. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
yeah, now.
yes, and
Great.
now.
So I'm going to officially call the meeting to order at 7:03. And welcome again. Happy fall. Thank you, everybody, for gathering this evening. I know we haven't met in a while, but I put it out there. I know Nora had some thoughts of things she wanted to discuss, so thank you, Nora. And so I figured, what the heck, we'll at least get together and see where we're at and see where we can go from here. Can we get an approval for the minutes of July 7th? I don't think you were there, Margaret, but at least I can maybe get a motion to approve from Nora or Maureen in a second.
I'll move that we accept the minutes from July 7th.
I second.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And yes, Margaret, you'll be abstaining.
I am.
Thank you. Any other communications or announcements anybody has? Okay.
I
Then we'll
just
go on.
want to give a hats
Oh, sure.
off to the Historical Society, and Maureen was part of that for that wonderful Walktober event they did this weekend.
Thank you.
Such a great way to kick off people's awareness of the Academy and what a wonderful resource it is for us, a great asset. So I'm just really grateful for that organization just jumping in and making that happen. So
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Very good. Thank you. Going to old business, I guess I'll open it right up to discuss potential future projects. Although it sounds like new business, but it's been on our agenda before. So, so Nora, I know you reached out. I had some thoughts of some things maybe we could do in the interim of the POCD. We were kind of waiting for the POCD because I didn't. My feelings want to complicate things, but go ahead.
So the first thing I'm interested in, and I know we discussed this, and it may be that I'm not remembering the conclusion, but I'm talking about 501c3 accounts at Town Hall. I know we did talk about that Eastern Connecticut Foundation, and it seems like people would not really be able to direct their donation to exactly where they want it to go. It's not like a Vanguard donor advised fund where you have your own account and you get to say where your money goes, as long as it's to a bona fide tax charitable organization. But the real problem that people has is on the receiving end from the town. And that is that people may want to donate money, let's say, to the Youth and Family Services. People may wish to donate money to the town for acquiring open space, because that's something that has not been funded recently. But the problem is they also want to be able to deduct those donations from their taxes. And the town does not have 501c3. I think the fire department has a 501c3 account, but I don't think anything else does. And I want to know why that is, why the town does not have that sort of account in more of the sections of government.
Well, I mean, the IRS has specific regulations on what is and can be a 501c3. And I know that, just to refresh everybody's, from my memory too, but we did look at the Eastern Connecticut Community Foundation, and we were going to try to have them set it up so that they could get the money could be donated and be tax deductible, and then they were going to turn around and kind of issue a grant to the town so the town could distribute the funds. And they found out from their folks that wouldn't meet the law for the IRS, so that wasn't feasible. I mean, there are communities, and the town the town, I know there was something in the, I know the Ashford Citizen, probably like 2 or 3 months ago, where Catherine Sources said people can donate to the town if they want for a specific need, and they'll direct it to it, but it's not tax deductible because that's, again, an IRS thing. You can't do that with the town. There are communities out there do have community foundations. It's groups of people that get together and they form a 501(c)(3). It's not the easiest thing, and there's a lot of responsibility for it.
Right.
I know that our own Ashford Arts Council was looking to do that, has been looking to do that for quite a while, and they just, for a variety of reasons, that they didn't have the capacity to do that. That's why they kind of jumped on with the Wyndham Arts Council to kind of piggyback their 501(c). So I mean, it's the town can't do it per se. It has to really be a group that's separate from the town and follows the IRS. And I mean, if you go on Google, you can find what it takes to do it. There's a process and filings and all things you got to do. And there are towns and places around in in the region that have done that, whereby they do get donations and they issue grants every year to specific organizations, and those funds are, when donated by individuals, are tax deductible. But so that's really the answer I can give you.
Okay. Well, so it sounds like what you might be saying is that items that are normally budgeted by the town cannot also be used as a charitable recipient. They can't be a 501(c)(3) if it's something that the town also budgets for. You think that's?
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be part of the part of it, but it's a little more, it's a little deeper than that, because the way the government, town is set up and what have you. That's why, again, there can be organizations that kind of collect money as a 501(c) and then issue a grant to those specific organizations for whatever purpose. But again, there's I could, if you want, I could send you the process, and what it takes is a number of individuals. I always go back to South Windsor because I'm familiar with it. South Windsor developed a community foundation. They had board members from like banks and different, businessmen and some lay people from the public. But it's set up very specifically, and it had an attorney that wrote it all up, and I think they had to actually submit it for review and approval through the state, feds, whatever, to make it an official one. But they collect money, and then they issue grants to various organizations throughout the town each year. So I mean, we could still go through we could still go through that Eastern Connecticut Community Foundation, but I think what they said you're required to do is like set up like a $10,000 fund, and then they would, like usually you're kind of saying that they would issue, they would probably follow what people want, but it would be a little less hands-on by the people here in Ashford, so it might be a little more hit or miss.
Well, just using open space as an example, and there are probably other things too, but this is an issue that I've been thinking about recently. It seems to me that, well, there's issues, of course, about the town owning more undeveloped land, as we heard at the, now I can't remember whether it was I think it was the forum that we had, where the one guy said, sell all the land that the town owns as a way to help with the budget. And I actually looked up all the parcels that the town owns, and in either their cemeteries, they are Cadle Rock, which is under a lien and needs to be cleaned up, or they're wetlands that nobody can develop anyway. So that nobody's going to buy those properties, right? So that issue is moot. But for the town to hold other open space might be kind of a negative issue for the town, because they own property and it's not generating taxes. Of course, if we let's just dream that we create some kind of foundation. I was also thinking, well, of course you need a board, and you need a board of people of different ages, and different interests, and different occupations, etc., because you need continuity for a thing like that. You wouldn't want to start it up and have it last for 5 years, and then everybody on the board dies and the whole thing, falls apart. So if you're going to do it, it really needs to be long term. And I see that actually as a problem for a town as small as Ashford, because we have 4,000 people here. Some significant percentage of them are children. Another significant percentage are people over the age of 70. Um, so,
Not
you know,
there.
some of them may be interested and maybe would be able to serve for as long as 10 years, but you can't have only people over 70, right? Yeah. I think you need more continuity. So those are all issues that I thought would be a problem for the creation and maintenance of an Ashford Foundation. Yeah, the board seems to, it's the people on the board will be the same people that volunteer all the time, it seems like. Unless you had a specific goal for the money that would appeal to certain other people, right? So, okay, I think that issue is kind of dead at this point. And
Well, I mean, I
I
think
know,
it's worth. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
going to say, I know we talked about it before, but when I thought about it again, and you and I, I put in the email that I wanted to talk about it, and then you made some comments. I realized that I hadn't quite finalized it in my head as to what the significant problems are for it.
Well, I still think it's a great idea. I mean, I'd still like to bring it forth at a future meeting. I think it's just a matter of whether you can gather people that are interested in becoming part of this thing and go through that process. And there's, likely a cost, but the groups that do it are fairly successful. And I would argue that even though Ashford has a lot of open space, if the one thing you do when you buy open space, especially developmental property that can be developed for houses, it costs more to put kids through high or through school than you may collect on the taxes. And that's why there's plenty of studies that's out there that show that the acquisition of developable open space for residential purposes actually can be a net financial benefit to a town for a variety of reasons of keeping it in, for the environment, but also for mitigating future costs for homes and children and the services that are supplied to residents. So I mean, I think that's still something that we should, and it's if you look at the open space plan, that's identified in there as something we should be looking at as developing some other ways. But yeah, so I mean, if people are just interested in, if people have more philanthropists that want to give money without the tax advantages, they can still do that right now with the town for whatever purpose they want to designate it for. But I think it's a point that we should still explore sometime. But it's a matter of finding people that are interested in doing it.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing is also that people who are interested in creating an open space fund that's not associated with the town government can talk to Joshua's Trust, and Joshua's Trust might, for example, accept donations that are earmarked for a certain parcel. And there are a couple parcels that seem to me to be fairly critical in town. One being the one where the old dump is, and where it runs between Farron's and Waterfall, and the river goes right down through the middle of it. But it looks like some kind of investment firm has bought that parcel, which is too bad. So anyway, um, I think I've got it better fixed in my brain now, so we can move on to the next thing, which is
Oh, before you go,
Bef-
before you do, anybody else have a comment on that?
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I also agree that it's something that we should pursue, um, and not necessarily give up on it. Um, I mean, I would assume, for example, within our own community, the the Babcock Library, right? Is it fully, is it its own entity that also receives town funds? Um, as well as the fire department, to your point, Nora, right? The Ashford Volunteer Fire Department may have been established as its own separate entity, and it may just receive payment for services from the town of Ashford. So, I'd be curious. I don't really know in those two examples how they work, but that's why there is a Friends of the Babcock Library, right, that can raise money independent, and why there used to be a fire department auxiliary to raise funding, separate from what they got from the town. So I think there must be some good examples. And we are a small town, but I think there's probably a lot of tiny towns around New England that have somehow dealt with this and probably established this. So I wouldn't give up on it. I think we just have to kind of research different. I mean, Mike's right. It's very, I'm sure, prescriptive from the state and the federal government, but how it's organized and how the money is distributed and how it's managed, I have to believe there's a few different examples out there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yep.
I had thought maybe to talk to Christina Davis, or somebody perhaps different on the Board of Finance that might understand this better, how this kind of thing would work. But I know there are people who would be very happy to donate money, but particularly if they could deduct it from their taxes. So
Yeah,
that,
I mean, I think that we've got to have that be part of the factor, or else you're not going to see significant donations. I mean, I think that that's going to be critical.
right. We also have the Bicknell Scholarship Fund. They are also not a 501c3 at this point, but I think it's not a very big amount of money, and it has a smallish board. And I don't know of any other group in town that might be able to qualify for that sort of thing. But I mean, to me, it's not extremely urgent, but I I'll kind of think about it more, and maybe I'll talk to Christina, see what can be done.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're also interested, Margaret.
Yeah, no, I think it's worth pursuing. Um, it might take a while, but I do feel like it's something that's critical,
Mhm.
because I just don't see us ever getting our open space fund
Right. I mean, our
up.
last budget was so tight uh,
Yeah.
that I just don't, I agree with you. I don't see having a significant amount of money put in there. And if we're serious about wanting to keep Ashford rural and wanting to protect the environment, it means we need to have contiguous parcels for wildlife movement. You don't want to have big gaps. Um, and that requires the money to purchase the land as it comes up for sale.
Well, and right now there are 3 or 4 significant parcels that are up for sale that are very concerning. Um, the Gillikin property on, the road where the dump is located. If you follow that little dirt road out to 44, I think that's 600 acres,
Wow.
Mm,
with road frontage and lots of forest. And it's been a long time, beautiful little reclusive, spot, but it's you know, I mean, there's several of them. So it is a concern.
Okay. I'll look into that too. All right. You ready for me to bring up the next one, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, so somebody thought that OTOF might be a good place to at least discuss, if not create, a Volunteer of the Year award. And I know that there have been a gazillion volunteers in the past who should all be recognized, but you know, you have to start sometime. So I wondered what people thought. I have no concept of how the thing would work. Presumably you'd need some kind of nominations from people, including, you know, a short essay about why this person should be considered. Features could be length of tenure, maybe level of leadership. I don't know. Just a thought. So, what do other people think about that?
Okay, I thought you were also going to talk about maybe we should have like a volunteer recognition program. I know that those do exist, whereby, you know, whether it's once every couple of years, once every 5 years, where there's a gathering just to recognize all the volunteers in the community. Those things can be as simple as a gathering with some light refreshments and everybody gets a certificate and just, you know, a recognition in a public setting of everybody who's volunteered to do something in the community. You know, or there's, you know, I know that again, I'll use South Windsor. Of course, it's a bigger budget and everything, but they started off. They actually had like a recognition for all the board members, the people that had volunteered on boards and commissions and subcommittees and different things like that. And they, you know, they had like a banquet basically, which was, you know, pretty expensive. But then over the years, they've kind of tailored it down, and then they end up doing it like every 3 to 5 years, and they win a gap. I guess they're just going to do another one here more recently, and it's been like probably 10 years since they did it. But they, you know, they just had like maybe like pizza gathering, and again, recognition of people that were on various boards and commissions, a little printed pamphlet and a little appreciation. Sometimes you can, if you have records, which I know most towns, even some of the more bigger towns, it's hard to track sometimes volunteers, even on some of your, you know, like planning, zoning, or wetlands and things like that, how many years of service they have, because they give out like service awards for 5 years of service and, you know, volunteering or whatever. So I mean, I think to me that might be a more gracious thing to do on some level. You know, but you know, I think the picking a volunteer of the year, that can make it a little trickier, because it's, you know, it's how do you I don't know, it's always a tough one, you know.
Sure.
But
I'm going to pick one person.
right. So I mean, I think when that, if we're interested, or if I think it's a good idea to do some kind of recognition, or even if you think it should be a volunteer of the year, I think that's something that if it's going to be something that's budgeted, I mean, you know, you could, like I said, we could get away with doing something that's just printed certificates with a little brochure that lists everybody. That does take time to figure out all these committees, what committees you include, which ones you don't include, you know, how far do you go? Is it just town kind of sanctioned groups, or is it like things that are kind of part of the community, like the, you know, the arts council,
Baseball.
or
Yep.
you know, or like the historic committee, or I mean, or the library. I mean, you can go, you know, there's a board for the senior center, you know, so how far do you go? I mean, I think those are all good things. Those are people that are doing the good deeds of the community, and some of them, nobody knows they're even doing it, you know. So I think that's a very positive thing to do, is at least, if nothing else, to recognize those people. You know, it's a matter of, you know, you don't want to leave somebody out. That's always the tough part. And depending on how much you do it, there's a budget. You know, do you gather funds from go to businesses or people and say, well, you're willing to donate towards a pizza party or for refreshments, or you know what I'm saying? So I mean, I think it's a fantastic thing. It's the thing, and I don't think it's something you do every year because it's just not at the heart. It's a lot of work. I mean, we had staff doing it with volunteer, people in South Windsor, and it was like, it took like 6 to 8 months just to plan it and make sure you're getting all the right information.
And
I mean,
yeah, you don't want to leave anybody out.
right. I mean, the hardest thing, like we found, is just trying to, find out, okay, who's on your committee or what committee, you're digging down. I mean, there are these lake associations out here. I mean, just trying to sometimes to find out who's on it and getting a hold of somebody, So that's kind of, it's a lot of time. I mean, but I think it's worth it. I think it'd be a great thing for a small community, but you want to be thoughtful in the way you do it and make sure you don't leave any rock unturned so you're not leaving somebody out. And then again, you got to decide what level of recognition and how big a deal, or what do you want to do? Sometimes you can give out little pins. I mean, you can make pins made up of the seal of Ashford. You can give those out as a gift, and they get like different levels. Again, if you want to do how many years people have served. But like I said, if somebody came to me and said, "Oh, geez, Mike, how many years have you served on on EDC, or I served on conservation?" I'd have a hard time myself figuring it out, let alone if there's no records of it, quite frankly. So, but I think it's a good idea. I just, where do we go from here? It's something we're going to budget. I think now would be the time to start doing it for, if they're going to want to put something in a budget for next year for the town to, because it really should be, truthfully, it should be the town of Ashford, the Board of Selectmen that are reaching out and recognizing, shaking the hands of all these volunteers, and they're the ones that would ultimately be the ones that are making the big deal of it. That's just my thoughts. Anyone else? Maureen, put you on the spot.
Oh, no. Well, no, I think it is a great idea. I think a lot of volunteers, though, I'm just speaking myself, are want to be invisible. They just
True.
they love what they're doing. They're committed to it, and like, no. So, but I'm sure everybody's not that way, and yeah, people deserve to be recognized. Yeah, but sometimes people just want to do it quietly.
Understand. Margaret, any thoughts?
Yeah, I also think that it would be a nice thing to do, because there's so many ways that are, as tiny as our community is, right? There are so many areas that people give of their time. And so maybe, we sort of, the attitude isn't so much as to who the individuals are, although you would use that. But if you were to name 3 people or 5 people, and to Mike's point, like every couple of years, it really kind of elevates not necessarily just their own contributions, but the organization that they've spent their time with. So it kind of also showcases, like, yes, Nord's been a leader of this Boy Scout group, and in the last couple of years, here are the projects they've done, and they've learned how to do this and they've learned how to do that, and that just enriches our community. And we couldn't do it without a leader like Nord. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of a way to raise awareness of just how that fabric is so tightly woven because of volunteer hours. And so if you recognize a few people, it's not it's not saying these are the only best people, right? It's kind of like the Kennedy Center honors, like there's 1 million people that could, and every year they give it to 5 or 6. So it's kind of that, if you kind of take that notion. But I think just, I don't know, just saying thank you and attaboy is goes such a long way, especially when you're talking about years of service and dedication. So, and I agree with you, Mike. I mean, I think that the selectmen might be the ones to actually shake and, but the idea of a group like us organizing it might take some of the political
Pressure.
implications and stuff out of it. I don't, so we do one in Mansfield that we've just done a couple of years for people who are local food champions. And it can be an entity or it can be an individual, but people, and we have a little nomination process for like 3 weeks, and people, it's super simple form, and they just have to give you a little description why they're nominating this person. And you collect all of those, and you have a little committee that reviews them all, and there's specific criteria what we're looking for, and it's worked, pretty well. And it's not a lot of work, and it is just a nice way to kind of pat somebody on the back, and what they get, I don't think is that important.
Right.
It's just the fact that they're, that people are saying thank you. And you could do it as part of, like, if they really do turn Family Day into a bigger event, if we really could get it to be like our premier event of the year in Ashford, and call it the Colonel Knowlton Day, or whatever we do to elevate that, so people don't just think it's for people with kids, or find some event like that where you have a big presence of people. You might not have to even create it as its own awards event. It might be something that you tag on to something else that people are at. So there's a few ways to approach it, but I think, yeah, I think you could do it without a lot of money. I mean, a little bit of a budget would be nice, but really it's just establishing it, and then you put their picture on the wall somewhere. You know what I mean? Even if it's just for those next couple of years, and then you take their picture down when the next batch wins, just something.
Maybe this be an opportunity to, a lot of organizations and boards and commissions are hurting for volunteers. Maybe this be a good way to market the need for volunteers by getting out there what's out there and making a big deal of it. And maybe some people say, geez, I didn't even know about it. You know what I'm saying? So there could be things just beyond just thanking people that this could maybe be a way to raise awareness in a way that's positive, and that maybe get some people to say, you know what, I think I'd like to be part of that, whatever group it is, so maybe that's another way to sell this, in a sense, to the Board of Selectmen, is, and I think that your idea, Margaret, is great about me, getting some time, if nothing else. I mean, maybe not taking away from, nobody wants to stand there for an hour and listen to the names being read necessarily, but like you said, if you have a list of people and maybe it's put up there, and maybe that's what we need as a board. Maybe put up a board someplace with the volunteers of Ashford, and you'll see their name on the board, and it's, once a year you change it. Somebody's responsible for updating that. Maybe that's something to raise awareness. I don't know, but I guess to Maureen's point, like, yes, most people are motivated to be on these committees for the reason that they want to help or be part of something, not necessarily because they want their name out there that they're doing it or whatever. But too, so I mean, you have to balance that and find that happy place,
Possibly we could also maybe feature a group that's made up of volunteers in the Citizen, and talk about what they do, why they were formed, if they wanted to include their names or not. And that might also help more volunteers to let people know what's out there. And there are so many people doing things that we're not aware of.
Right.
Maybe once a Citizen, we could feature a group. So
that's a good idea too.
Won't cost any money either.
Right. So where would you like to go with this thought?
Well, Margaret, you were talking about an event that happens every year. Is that correct?
Family Day.
Well, the Family Day occurs every year. Yep.
Well, I was thinking about all the people who have served 40 or 50 years or more. And there is a number of them, right? It's not like one. And they may have been on the same committee the whole time, or they may have been they may have doubled up and sort of gotten 20 years out of a 10-year period because they're on two committees, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But maybe
well, you could certainly start there. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm thinking, if we did this, and it can, as you said, it's not yours is not static. It doesn't have to be the exact same thing every year. So maybe we find out that there are 5 people who have given literally 50 calendar years on one or more committees total over 50 years. And I think it would be great for that to be the first one we do. They're going to be old and um, and they're and we and there won't be that many of them, I don't think. And then the next year we could do 40 years, that sort of thing, maybe. I mean, this is just a thought. And try to get the people that are really long-term volunteers to get them recognized. Um, as several of you have already said, write it up, advertise what they've done, their pictures or whatever, their CV pertaining to this volunteer work in the Citizen, hanging on the wall in Town Hall for a year or whatever. That might be the way to get started. And then if it's successful, we can look more at what people, uh, another way to feature volunteers, whether it's awards or just recognition or I don't know what, after these long-term volunteers have been recognized over maybe as long as 5 years.
You know, if you we could use our social media medium. Imagine a minute and a half interview with one of these volunteers where you just sit down with your cell phone and do a quick little interview with someone like, you know, hey, Joe Smith, we know that you've been associated with Ashford Little League since, why Little League? What led you there? Why did you start? Why did you never give it up? Like you could, and it doesn't take a lot. I mean, I don't have that particular skill set, but a lot of people do just weave together these quick little videos. And imagine the power of that just put on our community connections page so that you're actually hearing somebody talk about their volunteer work or why they volunteer with that organization. And again, it holds the organization up as much as it does them. So that, there's ways even in our little community without a radio station or a newspaper that we could, bring these people to life a little bit. So
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds good too.
Yeah.
I think we would have you'd have to have a set script, certain questions that you're asking.
Yep.
The whole thing could end up being edited so that it's smoother when it's
Yep.
finished. But I'm not a person that knows how to do that either, but I know it can be done.
Yep.
Okay.
But who knows? I mean, you're talking about somebody who's volunteered for 50 years, and I mean, I've been kind of associated with this community for about 25 or more, but I still can't say I would know anybody. I mean, I'm thinking of maybe like Joan Bowley or Ray Fenn. I mean, those are people that I know that have been involved with the community. But
John Bardick.
Yes, I was just going to say, Joe, my husband Joe just interviewed John Bartok for this Historical Society. They are interviewing old residents.
Mhm.
He was at the academy on Saturday, and he told Joe he started out as a paid secretary for planning and zoning, and then was I don't know if it was elected at that point. He ended up becoming a member of that board, and he was on it for 40 years.
But now he's moved out though. He lives in Eastford, right?
Yeah, he's in Brooklyn. So, but he came on Saturday. So, I mean, he's not bedridden or anything like that. I mean, I don't know how it'll be when
And I
family.
don't know how many years he played trumpet in the cornet band, in the
Right,
Babcock band,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, something else that came up. So, I think they're out there. I think the Historical Society, and Maureen, you probably know more about it than I do, has created a list of these people that they want to know more about. That
And subpoena.
the 20th century history
Mm.
of Ashford.
Right. There was it was just amazing being in that people really want what the history of this town, and it was very emotional. I mean, I talked to a lot of people, and someone said, "Yeah, my grandmother lived here," and it was people. It means a lot to people, and
Yeah.
I think their society's got a good start. I think they'll do well, and I hope so because it was just amazing. Met so many wonderful people,
On
and
Saturday, you're talking about.
right. And John brought he has a collection of old tools. Of course, he has them all named and everything. And boy, the men were just fascinated by that.
Yeah.
These big clunky tools. But he stood there and he explained things to people that were interested. And just as a comment too, everybody said we've driven past this and we've never been able to go in. Some guy from the fire department said I've driven past for 15 years. The only time I've been in here is when someone left the door open accidentally, so I went in. And so, I mean, were really interested in getting it back. They
Mhm.
part of our town. And
Mhm.
so anyway, that's kind of got off subject here, but
Okay.
So, Maureen, do you know anything about a list of people that are going to be interviewed?
I don't know who else right now. No, what they were trying to get is, I think, with Joe was the software to convert all this into text. We were working on,
Transcribe it.
yeah, and so, but yeah, it's definitely there'll be more people. Yeah, if you have suggestions, let us know because people.
Yeah, I think he's about ready to decide on the software that would do that.
Okay.
But yeah, and he made an MP3 for Saturday with Ann. What's her last name?
Pina.
With her discussion about attending school at the academy.
Right.
And then he said, but she was there anyway, and
I know.
talked about it herself.
She's
So,
yeah. How her family, her father moved. He was an attorney, moved her there from New York.
and
And she said
so,
she loved it.
so I will talk to Joe about this
Good.
and Maureen, you guys on the historical commission or society should, if possible, maybe you can be the people to determine who the oldest
Oh, okay, yeah.
volunteers are. I mean, is that something you think that people on your group would know?
I'm sure that some people are very familiar with Goy back in Ashford. So yeah.
They
Yeah.
would know
If you
who
don't know how
volunteered. So,
yeah, with their grandparents, the people, it was interesting too, because the bicentennial quilt and stuff was interesting because that list of all the women who worked on that.
yeah,
It was
that was 50 years ago.
so,
So,
but yeah, if someone can't, they would know someone who could, and we could definitely pursue that. So, and then you have
that
to
would
look at their volunteer.
I think that would just be really interesting. Or even if maybe for the first go round, they don't have to have volunteered for 40 or 50 years, but they maybe are 90 years old and they volunteered. And it
Yeah.
would be nice to do, as Margaret said, get an idea of what it was like for them, what they did,
Exactly.
why
Yeah.
they did it, how's it different today from what it was like back then.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and if we were able to pull this off for next year, it would be a wonderful thing to fold into the themes, the state
Just
themes around the Connecticut 250 celebration, because they talk about doing history. That it's not just all about fife and drum corps and what was going on in the revolution, but telling the stories of our communities. So if you sort of focused on that, it could be a wonderful tie-in
Yeah.
about,
So what it was like in Ashford uh, during the 100 years just previous. I mean, that some of these people have lived for over a third of the length of the age of our country. If they're 90 years old, the country's only going to be 250.
right?
So, okay, I'm typing this down so that I remember, and when I talk to people.
Yeah, we have a meeting the last Tuesday of the month, so I'll put it out, but I'm sure there'll be a good response.
Mhm.
So,
And then, Sherry might be of some help to this too, right?
Yeah.
Because she
Yeah.
was, Barbara Metzak's assistant when she was the assistant town clerk. And, there may be a way that they can sort of see who have been the long serving,
right,
on boards and commissions. But what you're not necessarily getting, although you might be, are people who have, served on some of the, they've been a deacon at the local church for 50 years, right? Like other parts of the community that aren't just town boards and commissions that are, again, the fabric of what's going on here. So, it'll be interesting, but that's certainly a place to start.
Mhm.
good.
okay, very good. Moving on. POCD, any updates, Nora, on what's going
The
on with
POCD subcommittee has virtually completed our work, the input work. It is my understanding now that we're waiting for Tyche. And we have been waiting for a couple weeks to get all of our sections put into a Word document with all the tables and charts that Tyche was supposed to update. So they were waiting for a while. I don't know who it is at Tyche, whether it's just Mike or if there are other people involved, but they were waiting for quite a while for the data to come from NECOG. They got the data 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I believe what's happening now is that they're putting the data into this big Word doc. Then we can look at it and see what's happening. It won't be formatted. It's not in publishing stuff. It's just we're going to look at the flow and look at the charts and make sure that stuff's all correct. We do have a meeting this Thursday. We'll see if Mike's able to attend and bring this document. I don't think it'll be finished until January. There
Great.
should be, I think that we're required to have it available to the public at some point before it gets published.
Right.
And it has to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. So, and they've seen parts of it, but they haven't seen the whole thing. I can't imagine that they're going to complain.
Right.
The job is done, they don't have to, to do it themselves. And I mean, if it were I'd be like, oh, this is fabulous. So,
Well, and related to POCD and related to the volunteer, one of the pieces I think in the POCD relative to economic development was actually looking at acknowledging, like a business of the year program, which was something that had also happened through the Wyndham Chamber a number of years ago, but it sort of goes hand in glove a little bit with the volunteer, is to formalize recognition of businesses that are making an impact in Ashford. So I just wanted to mention that related to our previous discussion, but
Yeah.
it's actually, I think, something that EDC had included in the, or had suggested be included in the POCD. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
That kind of dovetails into the potential future strategic planning process. And I think, again, as I've talked about before, is that anything that's not necessarily in the POCD would have to find a home to be someplace. And maybe that would be a strategic plan for the town. I think I mentioned before, I did talk with Catherine Silversmith about this, and she certainly wants to pursue something, but she was more concerned about how to do it in a professional way, and that meaning maybe getting some outside professional guidance, and then that costs money and would have to be budgeted, and obviously, the budget's been kind of a sore point relative to funding various items. So I think that's something that we need to pursue. I've reached out to Catherine to let her know. I mean, there are grants that are available for some assistance. UConn has a wing, one of their departments, that does some limited outreach to communities with strategic planning in mind. Certainly, I think if it got to the point where there was no funding to do something, at least we could there might be a possibility of at least taking what we have left over and at least packaging it somehow. Because I think, at some point, if this group, this committee is going to be doing some things that we were kind of originally spelled out in our mission statement, was to, facilitate getting some of the things done in a strategic plan, implemented, to move on or help encourage things to be acted upon, implemented, what have you. So at some point, we got to figure out how we do that, and whether that means waiting to get funding to have some professional guidance, or whether we chew off little pieces of it and get something moving in a direction. I don't know, because time doesn't wait for any of us. It ticks on. So.
Yep.
So anyhow, that's the thoughts there. Unless anybody else has any other thoughts on any of that. No. Any other project updates on anything? No. New member recruitment. Like I said, I try to beat the bushes a little bit, see if people are interested, but that goes back to that volunteer thing. Everybody's stretched thin. Most people I talk to are already on 2 or 3 committees. So
I think we might attract people if we can accomplish some of these things and our name gets out there. I mean, the fact that our name is on the outdoors website, on every page of the outdoors website, doesn't seem to be bringing volunteers in. But, maybe that's something I should add. I think I have an About Us page that talks about OTOF, but that's not what people look at. So it's like, if they're looking at that webpage, they're not looking to volunteer for our town or future. But I think if we can do this volunteer thing, strategic planning, I think there are maybe people that are interested in making input into that sort of thing without working on
making a big commitment.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the way I pitched this, is that this is a little more loose knit. We're looking for ideas. You don't have to be elected. You don't have to be, this is all about ideas and brainstorming and looking for cooperation, and just trying to kind of come up with that elevator speech that sets it aside. And I still think that we could, in concept, maybe pull in somebody like a John Boyano, who's stepped up a little bit more, I think, on the Ashford Arts Council. But John's kind of a big thinker, and this might appeal to him. So I think you're right, Nora. And when you can point to something that we do and say, yes, because, this happened, that's helpful. So
it's always the what's in it for me or what's in it for them. That's really the hook for people. You know, they've got to identify and say, okay, this is something that either I can contribute, I have an expertise, or that I think if I can contribute to get it to a point where I want to see things go. I think that's the thing. And I think you're right, that the visibility, it's a self-promotion, whether it's the volunteers, and the more we're out there, the more all you need to do is get, 2 or 3 people that are interested by what they've seen advertised or self-promoted out there for any of these things. And
Right.
you start getting it going, and then those people know people, and I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it
There's no
seems to
silver
me,
bullet out there. I know that, but
yeah, I think our committee can form the backbone of various projects without doing all the work ourselves. So, and these are different, very different things. Awarding, rewarding volunteers, identifying and rewarding volunteers is very different from strategic planning. So it seems if we can sort of advertise for a couple of helpers on some of these things, do you appreciate the volunteers? Join us in a brainstorming session, and then just see what comes from that. Same thing with strategic planning. I mean, creating a strategic plan is going to be a long project with specific steps, I'm sure, but not everybody has to go from A to Z through the whole process. We can have people come in and drop out for different sections of it if it works out. If it works out that we're involved in the organization of that.
good.
Okay.
Any other new business? I think we've kind of talked about next steps here already. We've talked about the POCD. There's no one from the public besides us. Any thoughts on the next agenda? Maybe have updates on progress for this volunteer recognition.
I think it'd be nice if we could have a list at the next meeting of people who we would like to recognize, who have been, let's say, people who are in their 80s or 90s, who helped, perhaps not in the last 10 years, but prior to that. Let's say 1950 onward. I don't know, there are probably still people alive that were adults in 1950. Not too many, though. I think it would be good to have that list so we would have an idea of the scope of what we might need to be considering here.
And the town history books too, they a lot of times they reference people who worked on things, and we could see if some of those people are still
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information in there.
I mean, you have like the cemeteries,
Oh yeah.
that have been run. I know the one up near me is, run by Gwen. I think Gwen's on it. Charlene Armitage and a few other folks. And Lou's on it, right? Lou's on it as well.
Lou's president. Yep.
So yeah, there you go. So I mean, there's a group that I don't know how long Charlene's been. I mean, I know her husband was involved for many, many years, but there's a lot of those little groups out there that we don't even know about,
Right. Yep.
So,
Yeah. And I don't know if there's any additional, we're having a dark sky night. If there's any other additional Walktober events, I'll have to look in the calendar, but I was trying to promote those on the Our Town, Our Future site as well. Just to have there be current information on the Facebook page for Our Town, Our Future. So if you all know of something that you think we should be promoting to get people out for it, or something that's significant, I just think if we can continue to be an agent for sharing communication, it would be a positive thing. So
yeah, we just missed the Nipmunk Forest Marathon. Was just yesterday.
This past weekend,
So many things in there.
Yeah.
Speaking of like the businesses, we're supposed to get 2 businesses here. Do you know what happened? Like our gas station and the nursery.
It wasn't a gas station, it was a used car lot. And it has been turned down, I understand,
Yeah.
for the biggest reason was that once a week they were going to bring a big car transporter in and park it right in front of the place and block traffic on Route 44 for who knows how long.
Yeah, if you go to the Planning and Zoning Commission minutes, Maureen, it's pretty thorough as to what the conversation was about it. They also didn't feel that it was consistent with the POCD,
Okay.
the type of business it was. The nursery is going forward, to my knowledge. I mean, they've done a lot of work there, but it's going to be my understanding is it's going to be a wholesale nursery. It's not a retail nursery.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's
what
someplace that a municipality might go to buy mature trees,
right.
but it's not someplace that you would go and buy one tree. That's my understanding, but
The trees are big trees that are being removed because of other development taking place right where the tree is. So instead of cutting them down, they're
Oh,
trying to move them and sell them. That's
great.
what I've heard. So that's pretty cool. And I don't know of any reason why that wouldn't go forward. The other thing about the used car lot was the concern about having used cars dripping on the pavement so close to the creek that's behind the building. They were concerned about runoff of fluids from the vehicles because they're used. And somebody I spoke to, and this is going to be an unofficial statement, said that the kinds of cars this guy sells are not the top of the line used cars.
It's too
Oh.
bad that they took down what we did and then nothing happened, because what we had for the
Yeah.
gas station was
Yeah.
so nice, and now it looks horrible.
Well, it'd be great if something else could go in there. If I mean they've done work on the inside, presumably they got it ready, put a floor in, got it ready for an office. So wouldn't it be nice to have and there's space for they were going to put I think 35 cars and everyone's thinking, how the heck would you get 35 cars on that lot? But yeah, it'd be nice to have a coffee shop or something.
Yeah.
I also thought about that being display pace. I can't speak. Display place for the Ashford Arts Council, like open on weekends or something.
Yeah. If it's vacant, why not? They could rent it.
But somebody, well, maybe he would rent it. Who knows? But yeah, yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts, comments? Okay, I want to appreciate everybody coming out tonight or coming out to wherever your computer is. And
Yeah.
hopefully
Look at the
enjoy
moon
this weather, hopefully, and we'll
Good
see
meeting.
you next month. I'll motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
second it. Thank
Second
you
and third.
all.
Yeah, thank you. 8:05. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.